So thanks everybody for joining. My name is Tessa Archibald. I'm a policy associate for the Animal Welfare Institute, and I manage the Homes for Horses Coalition. Just a couple of things to keep in mind as we get started. Please stay on mute unless you have a question or something, just so we can hear our speaker clearly. This will be recorded and available to share, so if you do need to hop off, no worries there. Most of you joining today are members of the Homes for Horses Coalition, but for those who aren't, I can share a short introduction. The Homes for Horses Coalition has been active since 2007, when it started as a unique coalition to help horse rescues and ultimately help equines by ending horse slaughter. Today, HHC is led by the Animal Welfare Institute and the American Wild Horse Campaign and has over 500 members who are equine rescue directors, equine professionals, and equine advocates. HHC is dedicated to providing spaces like this one for collaboration, for connecting within the equine rescue world, as well as furthering advocacy to improve the lives of equines through legislation and policy. One announcement, HHC has a conference coming up in September, the 21st through the 23rd in Washington, D.C. So save the date. We should have registration info and discounted hotel rooms available soon. So mark your calendars and follow us on social media and join our email list to stay up to date on that registration info as it becomes available. We have such a great speaker joining us today to talk through some research. Anna Baucum currently works at Brook Hill Farm, a nonprofit horse rescue and therapeutic riding organization, where she is a supervisor and a vet tech. Anna holds a certification through the PATH International Society as an equine specialist in mental health and learning, which she uses alongside her degree in psychology to help the at-risk youth at the farm. She has spoken at both national and regional conferences, as well as at the Temple Grandin Equine Center. And fun fact, she was a coach at the United States Pony Club Championship in show jumping. Anna is proud to be a member of the Equine Wellbeing Committee for the Horses and Humans Research Foundation. So she's going to share some of the information that she learns through that committee with us today. Thanks so much for joining, Anna.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I'm going to have quite a few slides, so I'm going to try to go through them quickly. But please feel free if y'all have a question, don't hesitate to ask that or put it in the chat, because would like this to be as interactive, but still get through the material. So feel free to stop me if you have a question or if there's something I say that you're not quite don't understand. And then there will hopefully be time for questions at the end. But welcome. We're talking about speaking horse, learning equine behavior. If I can get my screen to work. So we know that horses are sentient beings, but just accepting that we accept that they experience many of the same feelings that we do, and we know that animals have a viewpoint that matters, and our quest is to provide a good life for them by considering their viewpoint. That's gonna kill me that the button's over here. Horse brain and human brains are different. Human brains, we think and plan and then take action. We rely on our frontal cortex to make decisions, where horses are hardwired to move in response to a stimuli, and equine brains are engineered to sense and interpret their world. I found this term in my research, Umwelt, from a German biologist, and this refers to the perception of one's environment by one's own senses. And he talks about that even two animals of the same species living in the same environment, they'll experience that very differently. And it becomes a challenge for us humans to step outside of ourselves and imagine that from the horse's point of view. But this doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do that. And I love this picture because it kind of shows us humans, we're thinking about everything we have to do during the day, what we have to do out after the barn, all of this, and we really need to work on being in the moment with the horse. The horse's brain is 2.5 pounds, and a key difference in the horse brain versus ours is the size of the frontal lobe. Horses really don't have one. They have great long-term memory. They have photographic memory of the negative experiences. As horses in the wild, they need to remember where the lion's den is so they don't go there again, which also makes it difficult when we're working with our horses because they remember all of the bad stuff and it's harder to remember the good stuff. They have very limited short-term memory. Their only focus is, am I safe? And they have in-the-moment reactions. They react within 3 to 10 seconds. And horses are prey animals, so they have safety in numbers. Alone, a horse has to remain vigilant 100% of the time, so they never get to let their guard down. And they have the same senses as we do, but they are significantly more sensitive than we are. And they have great ability to sense emotions in those around them. And at the conference, I learned that horses can hear your heartbeat from 4 miles or 4 feet away. I lost my mouse. So hearing, horses' ears are shaped to locate, funnel, and amplify sounds. Their reaction time is 0.14 to 0.16 seconds, where humans is 0.22 to 3.03.384 seconds. That is hard. So they hear things a lot better than us, and horses respond to louder decimals than humans. They can't really hear whispering. Their hearing is better and highly directional. Their ears are able to rotate independently for 180 degrees, and horses understand human emotions from tone. And the ears tell us the story of the horse. They kind of give us a clue on what the horse is thinking. Smell is the strongest source of perception in horses. They have 300 million receptors where humans only have 5 to 6 million. And their phlegm response, and a fun fact that I learned while doing the research for this, is the horses are not the only animals with this. There are others that include cats, dogs, cows, pigs, primates, and also reptiles have this as well. Odors carry a lot of information for the horse, and each horse and person has a unique smell, and that's how they know each other. Horses flare their nostrils to get more scents, and horses depend on this sense, the way of smell, the way we depend on our language. Taste, there is not a whole lot of research out there on horse taste, but we do know that they have taste buds. They can taste metal, bits, grass, treats, and they each have their own individual taste preference, which I think we can all have seen that. Horses that some like carrots, where some like apples. And touch, horses are very tactile sensitive. Touch is their main interface of communication, and their skin is the largest organ as it is in ours. Horses prefer scratching to stroking or patting, and they are very sensitive around their eyes and nostrils. And grooming and mutual grooming are very positive behaviors. And I also learned this recently, that their skin everywhere is as sensitive as the tips of our fingers. And their whiskers. These are sensory organs. They are very sensitive to touch. It helps them compensate for the blind areas that they have in front of their face and directly under their nose. And the good thing that equine welfare is trying to push is they are now illegal in Europe to shave. We're trying to get that brought to America as well. Vision, they have excellent motion detection. They have good color vision. They can't see all of the colors. An interesting fact, they're still trying to figure out how horses see yellow. They have great night vision. They're good in lower light, better than humans. They may not see color as well as we can, but they can see movement that we can only see using a telescope. And they can't see a full 360 view, but they only need to raise up their head, which I learned very important. When they lifting up their head, they're trying to see something a little farther away. And horses use this information to understand their environment, and this affects their behavior. These are some pictures from our kids doing horse agility. And horses are sentient beings that they are aware of, sensitive, and affected by their behavior. And this includes their emotional and physical state in the presence of others. So in the wild, our horse's native tongue is very subtle, and they use these subtle movements as the ears, the nostrils, the eyes, the mouth, and sometimes even just shifting their weight to convey information to others in the herd. And horses are very soft speakers. And they rely on this good communication through body language because it lets them live in harmony with each other. They're able to form social groups, and this helps protect them from predators. When they want a predator to hear them, they are extremely loud. When they are not talking to the predator approaching, they speak very quietly with very subtle body language. And these subtle communication is used to alert to danger, as they always need to be alert to any noise to know if they need to flee. Wild horses and herds that are free speak pure horse, and domestic horses speak with a human accent. They have adjusted their language to speak with humans. And humans are poor at communicating and understanding what our horses are saying. They remember different body positions for humans, elicit different behaviors for the horses, and horses remember past interactions with humans, and those interactions impact how the horse will interact with humans in the future. Keep losing my mouse. Sorry. We also need to make sure that we are accurately interpreting the signs. If we don't, we can implicate the horse for the horse welfare as well as the human safety. And communication with the horse comes from them reading our body language and us reading theirs. And they do talk to us if we kind of slow down and take the time to listen. And it's important to spend time with your horse in the field, doing nothing but just watching them. And also we need to learn horse communication and learn the science behind that. We need to know these little subtle signs that our horse is telling us, because that's how we know if they are not feeling well. Being prey animals, the horse will hide when they are sick or in pain, because that would make them more vulnerable to being picked off. They might be a little bit more standoff, not really wanting to interact. There's also subtle signs of frustration that is important to know. Swishing of the tail, might paw or stamp. These are little ways of the horse saying, I don't like what's going on or something is bothering me. They also show it in their face with wide eyes, and they might lift their head. And then when they're in this state, their only focus is on, am I safe? Licking and chewing. This is what happens when a horse is coming out of a stressful state, coming back into their like rest and digest state. And it comes from the horse going from dry mouth, hey, I'm getting ready to run, to I start making saliva again and start licking and chewing. An unwanted behavior comes from levels of pain or fear, but we always want to check for pain first. And we can't train away pain. I like this picture because it's got a little example of a pain face, kind of looking at all the different points. So I was going to tell you a little story about a horse we have out at the barn named Whiskey. Whiskey was brought to us, beautiful thoroughbred, was a jumper. He came out and everybody was singing his praise. Oh, he's done great. He's a great horse. So we brought him out into the barn to work with him, and he would rear. He had lots of different training. He had to pop down on his pole in between his ears. All different kinds of abusive training techniques to try to fix the behavior. What we found after some testing is he has kissing spine on the right side. So every time you go to the right, he caused some severe pain, and the only way he knew what to do is to go up. So his was not a behavior problem, it was a pain problem. So he is now since retired and does our ground horse agility stuff. There is also a grimace scale. So this is found, you can find this online pretty much everywhere. It's a good example of different points to look for your horse if you're looking for pain. And horses give us warning before they overreact if we take time to pay attention to what they're saying. And we might have less accidents if we accurately know what our horses are saying, and they're not just being bad, which is my pet peeve at the barn when people call the horse a bad horse. And it's also not enough to know the negative expressions of our horses. We also want to know the positive ones as well. So we want to know when our horse is saying, we absolutely love this. Their relaxed eyes have closed, their jaws relaxed. This all creates what we call the equine smile. And horses react to what lies in our hearts and not in our heads. So we have a kid comes out and they don't want to tell anybody what's going on. The horse knows right away. We cannot lie to our horse. Horses are also clueless about their size and weight. So they have no idea that we are not the same size as them. And horses cannot hold grudges. They can't plot revenge, try to win. They can't plan a way to get out of working. My favorite is we have somebody comes out and she says, "Oh, it's Monday, so my horse is anticipating that it's going to be a bad day and I'm coming to ride." They don't think that way. And they don't take pleasure in making us mad, even though sometimes it may feel that way. And horses are sensitive learners on the ground because they can see our body language. So we do a lot here on the ground, so the horses can see us, and then we can see what our horses are saying. And with good communication, we can connect with a horse and have sort of a body language dialogue in which we understand each other. So to do that, we need the 3 C's, which is communication, confidence, and connection. So communication, horses lead or have leaders. So in a herd, we have different groups, and each group has a leader or one that they follow. And when we move our horse's feet, we show that we are a good leader. When our horse moves our feet, we tell him that he is the leader and the one taking care of us. So we want, because in the natural herd, the one that you know is higher up will push the other horse out of the way. I have a little video of how we cross over the feet. If we have a horse that we're kind of like, hey, I want to say I am higher, or I'm not in control, but going higher, and we'll see if this will work. So we kind of want them to cross in the back. That is a sign of submission, saying, because when their legs are crossed like that, they can't run away. So when we're working with our horse, we want the 2-horse herd. And this is saying who makes the decision. Is it safe or should we run? So kind of thinking when you're working with a horse, we are kind of we're a little mini herd. And I lost my mouse again. There we go. We don't want to be a boss or a bully. We're merely letting the horse know that we are capable of looking after him and kind of help. Hey, I'm going to help watch if a lion comes out. We also have to be able to keep ourselves calm and in control so that they feel safe. I have a story that I tell about this. One of our horses never had a problem with him. I was very angry about something that had happened that day, went to go get the horse, and he said, "You're not touching me." So I had to step out and kind of take a breath and say, I'm okay. Everything's good. I'm going to be in the moment with the horse." Walked back in, and he was like, "Okay, now we can work together." Um, so we also have to learn how to regulate ourselves to be able to make the horse feel safe. And confidence, the horse needs to feel confident about being near us, so we can have confidence in him. They are very large animals. And what horses do, whether they need to protect themselves or where they need to accept you, is directly how you make them feel. Like the horse when I went to get when I was very angry, I could have, if I decided, I could have eaten him. Not that we eat horses, but in his mind, I was a predator and I was coming at him very angrily. Um, where I changed that, he was very willing to work with me and do whatever I asked him. Keep it in my side. So, misunderstandings with our horse. These can often be from past experiences. We have some horses out here that are very stubborn and pushing, and from where they came from, those behaviors were acceptable. We have a horse who's very pushy, but where he came from, she was like, "Oh, I let him get in my lap, or I let him do this. I let him pick at my pockets." So for him, that was acceptable behavior. So we want to show him how we want him to be. Kind of saying like, "This is cool. This is my space. We're going to respect that boundary." And we have to remember that these horses, they react like a horse, not like a small child or a dog, and we don't want to anthropomorphize their behavior. We want to remember to think like a horse. So a lot of times when we're thinking about what horse is doing, I might also kind of look, hey, what am I doing that might be causing this behavior? And you should never punish your horse. Punishment only slows down the process. And we have to remember that spooking is a horse's natural behavior. So that is part of their being flight or flight animals. When something is scary, their instinct is to flee. And they have learned with working with humans how to decipher what they need to flee from and what they don't. We have a horse, everything is good unless you move his environment, move stuff around, then he spooks. And horses never give a wrong answer, only an appropriate one. And wrong answers are a communication problem. So a lot of time if our horse gives us what we think a wrong answer, kind of take a step back and look, how did I ask? And a lot of these I look back and what horses do in nature and how they communicate with each other, and then kind of bring that back to whatever I'm doing with the horse to make sure hey, did I push you at the right spot? Did I not release the pressure when you gave me what I was supposed to have? And horses learn by oh gosh. Repetition, importance, and they are sequential learners. So they learn in stages. So here with what we do with our kids in the pattern, we have a pattern, we'll do a little bit, and the next day we'll add a little bit more, and the next day we'll add a little bit more. So the horses start to kind of learn what they're expected. We also do that when we have horses come in the herd, kind of the consistency and, hey, this is what we want. That is how they learn. Also checking on time, and we're doing really well on time. And the horse learns best when they're not under stress. There is no perceived threats. He feels safe, and we let him have some control. So we do a lot off lead, on the ground. We also, when we're riding, let the horse have a little bit of say in what they're doing. And the biggest challenge to equine well-being is anything that causes unwanted behavior. So this picture is little horse we have named Devin. And this picture is a very good one of burnout. So Devin had gotten to the point where he was just very burnt out with everything. Didn't want to engage with anybody. Didn't really care if you came by with carrots. How do we kept pushing him to, hey, we're going to keep going in lessons. We're going to keep doing stuff. I could have had some unwanted behavior such as bucking and rearing. Mr. Devin has a very nice big buck that he will do. So it's kind of noticing those so we don't cause unwanted behavior. Lost my mouse again. And every behavior has an underlying need. And when you meet that horse's need, instead of correcting the behavior usually goes away. With this picture, we've learned recently that horses only get REM sleep when they are laying down. And it's very important for them to have the REM sleep as it is with people. And if they don't get the REM sleep, they're very grouchy, irritable. And they also we have one horse out here that doesn't feel quite safe to sleep. So when we're grooming and doing something with her, she will just fall over. She'll end up going to sleep and then fall over, which is not safe when we're standing around the horse to have a big 1,500-pound animal falling. I also have another horse out here who kept kicking the stall door, making everybody go crazy. Could she kick the wall, kick the door? Found out for her where she was in the barn, there was too much traffic, too much going on, and she didn't really feel like she had a space or a way to get out of that environment. So we moved her to a different area of the barn that was more open, and all of that behavior has gone away. And then connection. We want to make sure we have a connection with our horse. If we have a connection and are communicating effectively with each other. And I like this picture because these two on this day did not have a connection whatsoever. And I think it's important to say, hey, sometimes we don't have a connection with each other today. We need to either not work together, or change what we're doing to kind of go back a couple steps and see where did that connection piece fall apart. Because there are days where we just, that piece is not there. We also want to remember that each horse has a different they're individuals. They each have different temperaments. I think I'm gonna run out of time or not have enough. But individuality, each horse is unique. We had somebody come out to the barn recently and they're like, I had no idea that each horse was so different, and that they were very social. It is quite cool if you come out to our barn. We have 43 horses on 60 acre, and kind of watch. They all join in little group. They have little groups and mini herds. And a lot of times the bays will join up with the bays and the grays will join up with the grays. Which is very interesting. And then we have the palominos and the paints that don't know where to go. And their personality is consistent over time. And their temperament is pattern of behavior from. So when we look at that, we had some of the kids out here the other day kind of describing their horses, what is their personality and what is their temperament, which is quite fascinating. And we know our horses are not bad. It's experience of their training. I really like this little picture. It says, I'm not a bad horse. You just didn't teach me how to be a good horse. Don't punish me for your failures. We all need love and patience, just like people. And it is, when working with a horse, it is our job to make sure we build good relationships with the horse. And with good relationships, we can help them understand. And it's our job to rephrase the question. So when our horses don't understand something, it's our job to kind of look and say, hey, how can I fix this and make this a little better so that you understand? 'Cause all they are is kind of, stuff that they come with. Like right now we have a horse who's a bolter, and he thinks his job is always going to be hard. And we've gone back to the basics, and I've actually put him in a hackamore, and are just going very slowly. And kind of it's been very fascinating to watch him go from like pure fear in his eyes to saying, hey, this is actually kind of fun, and I've been okay while doing it. And we always want to see the horse that is in front of us. So we want to see the horse that is in front of you today. We don't want to think about how that horse was yesterday or this morning, but kind of really paying attention to what the horse is showing you in that moment. And we also want to respect each individual abilities, character traits, and limitations, and not kind of push our horse beyond what they're capable of, but meeting them as individuals. Because I know that we have seen a couple horses where people are like, oh, this is a great horse. This is my ideal horse, color-wise, breed, um, temperament. I'm going to have him be a fancy dressage horse. Wherein the horse was very long and just couldn't physically frame up. So I think also being aware of saying, hey, sometimes you might think it's great, but they can't do that job. And these are some references that I had for this. And any questions? I kind of went through that a little faster than I meant to, trying to make sure I had enough time.
No worries. Thank you, Anna, so
Yeah.
much for all that information. I loved, how you focused on not anthropomorphizing our horses, just meeting them where they're at and how we can
Yeah.
support them and be an effective and compassionate leader. So I
Yeah.
thought that was fantastic.
And that is hard to do.
It
I mean,
is, yeah,
there are
definitely.
times
So
where I still have to say, hey, is this me or the horse?
yeah, a reminder is always helpful.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions based off that?
If I need to go back to a slide, I can, because I apologize. It was a lot of information rather quickly.
Well, I'm not seeing any questions yet, but you are always welcome to send me an email. I can connect you with Anna if you do have any questions about the presentation today. And thank you everybody so much for joining us. Oh, here we go. Julie has a question. Julie asked if a horse can ever truly be broken, as in not spook as much.
I think that's a great question. Um, so I think kind of like desensitizing them and kind of letting them expose them to a lot of different things can help with that. I don't know if I would ever call that like broken enough. Sometimes I think we have to be careful if a horse is so shut down, they won't show us anything until they get to the explosion point. As we just got a new horse in who was dead quiet, very shut down, and everybody was like, oh, he's going to be great for your therapeutic lessons because he's like, doesn't care about anything. Um, and I was like, yeah, he's the last one I want for that program because he's so shut down. He's going to be the one that explodes. But we do a lot with horse agility and liberty work and kind of creating crazy obstacles. So we have like 2 standards with plastic bags through them that the horses go through. And I think that does help kind of they get used to a little bit more stuff. So when something when we have a plastic bag throw in the arena, they don't, it's not quite as scary as something they've never seen before.
Absolutely. We have a question about the grimace scale. I don't know if you want to hop back to that slide and describe the grimace scale or some things to point out about equine pain behavior.
So the grimace scale is kind of showing different parts of the face, where you would want to look to kind of notice like the little subtle things of pain. Like in the first one, it's focusing on the ears. If there's no pain, the ears are forward. Kind of, there's a little bit, we're kind of worried, kind of watching the ears kind of move a little bit more back. And then it also does the eyelid, the little spot, the wrinkles above the eye, the mouth, the nostril. So it kind of breaks it down so you can see each little individual area of the horse's face. And what was the other part of that question?
No, that's definitely helpful. And when
Oh,
reviewing
yeah,
the grimace scale, to look at all of these parts of the horse's face in
yeah.
combination.
And I think it's also important just to know your horses and like
Definitely.
what's normal for your horse. There we go. What's normal behavior for them, what's abnormal. Because you can kind of tell once you know your horse's normal behavior, you can kind of tell when something's not quite sure, but I feel like something's wrong. And then this is a good way to kind of go through and be like, am I seeing pain anywhere? Um, or do they have tension anywhere on their face? Because they are very good at hiding that.
Definitely. Abby had a question about offering corrections using the pressure release system that you talked about, and compassionately helping your horse understand when they're in your space, when they are interacting in a way that isn't desired.
Yeah, so the pressure and release, the release for the horse is the reward. So if you're leading your horse and you want them to walk on and you kind of give a little pull on the lead rope, as soon as the horse makes a motion, hey, I'm going to move forward, you would release that tension. So that's the reward for the horse. We do that often when we're riding and we tell our horse to whoa. The whoa is not, hey, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to hold back. They know they've done the right job when you release that pressure, and that's when they stop. Um, so kind of wanting to do it positive. So if I have a horse that's kind of in my space, I kind of push them away. And then once they kind of stand where I want, I praise them for that. Like, good, that's where I want you. Um, and then kind of just releasing that pressure of pushing them away when they're where I want them to be. So they're not all in my face.
Sherry had a question about the agility that you talked about. They were curious if there's an online agility club that you've worked with, or if this is just something that you do at your facility.
Um, so I don't work with the club. There is one England. I'm not sure if there's one in America. But we were looking for something to do for our participants. So we were learning about the whole horse and not just the riding piece. And I found horse agility through looking. So we've kind of taken what they've done and made it our own to fit our program. Which is the fun piece about that is you can join a club and get different rankings. Or you can just make it your own and really make for whatever fits, what you need. Like our kids have made a platform, so they had to research how much like does a horse weigh, how big does it need to be, how do we need to make it where a horse can stand on it and not fall through. Um, so we've just found random things that we have at the farm. We've used a tarp, um, just to kind of get more creative and learn the body language in a fun way. But there
Definitely.
is, yeah, it was started by a lady in England. And I know she does a club. So there is one there if you're interested and I mean, they do have it where people can join and stuff.
Yeah, I think Sherry mentioned that she's Vanessa B is the
Yes.
founder, and she's part of that international club in England as well as one in Quebec. It's interesting that
That's
they're
cool.
in, you know, other regions as opposed to in the United States. So I would be curious to see when that comes up more here.
Yeah, we liked that because pretty much all of that is done off lead. Um, so you really have to learn how to communicate with your horse.
Suzanne had a question about nature versus nurture, kind of. Have you found that some horses are just born with specific sensitivities, just like people? Things like hypersensitivity, not sleeping as much versus a big sleeper, etc.
Yes, definitely. But I think that kind of goes back to like knowing each horse. Because we definitely have some that are, um, we have one mare who just doesn't like to be brushed. I think she gets very overstimulated with a lot of touch. Where we have others that are like, oh my gosh, can you brush me harder? Like, I love it. Like, you know, so I think, yeah, just being aware of each horse individually. And we do have, some that lay down more than others. Um, some that are like, hey, I've got my little 20 minutes. I'm good. I'm not going to lay down for the rest of the day. So I do think it kind of comes in knowing your horse and knowing what they like and dislike. So with our mare who hates brushing, we try to, brush as gently as possible, or find a brush that she can kind of tolerate a little bit better. So it's not quite such a horrible experience for her.
Let's see. Our last comment was from Sherry as well. I think when we were talking about the grimace scale, Sherry mentioned blinking. She said when a horse is blinking, it helps to know that the horse is accepting something that was worrying him.
Yeah, so I kind of watch that. I really watch for the licking and chewing because then I know that the horse is no longer in that fear state. Um, so that's usually kind of what I look for when I'm working with a horse. We had one that was difficult to catch and kind of working with him. As soon as she started licking and chewing, I knew I had like, okay, now I can work towards actually trying to approach you because we're no longer in that fear. But yeah, the blinking is important as well.
Definitely. Let's see. Does anyone else have any other questions? I've really appreciated your contributions so far.
Yes, they're ahead. Great questions.
Yeah, totally. Oh, here we go. Sherry has a question. Is it possible to have a horse that has a mental problem or a disability that makes them impossible to read or communicate with? Example of a mare that was at our barn. She arrived from a breeder at 3 years old and was very cuddly one moment, then like a switch, she flipped and she would attack.
Um, yeah, so I think um just like people, they can have a lot of stuff going on. A lot of times out here, if we have a horse that's kind of like that, um, we are lucky that we have 60 acres, but we often will turn the horse out and not have them do anything. They'll come in to eat, and then throw them out. And we find when we do that, when the horse is ready, they'll start coming up to people randomly and start looking for the human interaction. Um, I might also kind of look like what's happening in her environment when that switch happens. Um, when we're rubbing, did we touch somewhere that's maybe sensitive? And she's just kind of saying, hey, no, thank you. They are doing research in generational trauma in horses from horses that have been separated from their mothers too young, um, which I was very interested in learning because showing that there is behavior issues that come up when they're removed um, before too too young and how we do the weaning process and all of that. Um, so I think there could be a lot of factors. So kind of just I might just go through and, hey, kind of start looking at what's going on when those changes come. Um, is there, I have one horse out here, if a lot of people are around, he will start nipping and biting. But he gets into this fear state because there's so many predators around, I can't get away. As soon as we kind of say, hey, everybody needs, yes, he's pretty, but go on with what you need to do, the biting stops. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, that was super helpful. And, definitely that point about just letting the horse be a horse and potentially decompress is super important. Dee Dee had a great little quip here. We like to say, if he's thinking, he's blinking. If he's hot, he's not. So that's an easy
That's a
little
good
way
one.
to remember, to make sure you're looking at your horse's subtle cues like blinking.
Yeah. And we have somebody comes out and does like a massage type of thing on our horses. And I like her because she'll kind of ask first, like, hey, what's normal behavior? So that way she knows, hey, does this horse just blink a lot in general, or is it something that he's trying to tell me that I'm doing?
Kathleen had a follow-up to your umwelt item. She said, expanding on your idea of the umwelt and that all animals experience the world very differently, there's a really good book called An Immense World that is scientifically based and extremely eye-opening to just how much we wrongly assume on the experiences of others. So that's a really great
Oh, that's good.
recommendation. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Thank you for that. I'll have to, actually haven't heard of that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Definitely. I hadn't
Yeah,
heard of umwelt before, so I'm going to have to look more into that. Thank you.
yeah, that was, and on my reference, that was a research paper that was done. And it's very good. It is in the references if anybody wants to look at that, but it goes into depth of each of their senses in great detail, and then also with the human and horse connection and kind of how horses and people interact.
Definitely.
That is a new article that just came out
Great.
end of last year, the beginning of this one.
Will you share your slides with me so that I can get them to everybody who attended? I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, I can do that.
Great. Yeah, this will be a great resource for everybody. And then we can look into those references further.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I don't see any other questions right off the bat. But thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And thank you so much, Anna, for this presentation and all of the hard work. And these slides are absolutely fantastic. So they're going to be a great resource for everybody.
No, well, thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for joining.
Totally. Thanks,
And for
everybody. You're getting lots of thank yous in the chat. Thanks, everybody, for joining.